Sharp Radio's forward observer, Maury Stanley.
Hi, welcome to the channel. So today I'm continuing my reaction to the Battle of Long Tan documentary, Vietnam War Danger Close by Walsh Red Dune Films. Let's get to it.
The entire platoon was now fighting for their lives as the enemy attack increased from the northwest and southeast.
It's like just a magic finger taking little bits of slices out of the rubber tree where the bullets were coming through.
Buick moved 6th section into a reverse L, protecting the left flank.
So we then went into a defensive type of mode where I got the right-hand section to move them round to protect the southern flank. And we could just look after the northern flank as much as we could, but we had to stop this attack that's placed on us by possibly 80 to 100 BC.
That's when they started to show themselves. And it just got more and more enemy coming through all the time.
When they opened up on fire, we in fact done what we trained to do, is to bring fire to bear onto where the enemy is and bring artillery down. And that would have taken about probably 10 or 15 minutes.
Sharp Radio's forward observer, Maury Stanley.
It was up to Maury Stanley, the forward observer, to react and provide artillery fire in front of 11 platoon.
At least fire some artillery, not close to them, but at least to harass the enemy or hope that it might catch them in a withdrawing position.
Just quick FYI, but Captain Stanley was not alone. There are 2 other New Zealand fishers with him.
Shot, over. 4-2, shot, over. 4-2, drop 500, 1 round, over.
11 platoon would have been 200-300 metres away from us. We couldn't see them.
Our main concern at company headquarters at that time was to try and provide support.
Smith continued to move Company HQ, 12 platoon and 10 platoon closer to 11's position, as Stanley, on the move, called in the artillery ranging fire.
3-4, shot, over. 4-2, shot, over. 4-2, drop 250, 1 round, over.
The 6 guns of the New Zealand 161 field battery, Maury Stanley's battery, were 5 k's away as they dropped their shells closer to 11's front.
A lot of my work was guesswork in the early stages. I don't deny that.
Stanley, guessing as he likes to put it, continued the artillery bombardment. Bravo Company, 2 k's away, already knew their mates were in trouble when they were told to hold their position.
And as we waited, the battle increased in crescendo. It just got louder and louder and louder, and the artillery, and it's just, you could hardly hear yourself talk where we were. So we asked Zero Alpha, which was the headquarters, what we would do, and they told us to set fire. Hang on.
Almost immediately, there was some pop mortars fired from down to the south, and the mortar shells landed just maybe 20 metres to our south.
We were between the rubber plantation and the banana plantation, and 50 metres or so, mortar fire started firing. Then it started to move up. Well, we took off.
I immediately moved the rest of the company around about 200 metres to the northwest.
We were standing there looking at each other and thinking, what the hell's going on? Where is everybody gone?
Under enemy mortar attack, Smith continued to move company headquarters.
So we started moving up, and I swear that those guys could see where we were because they just kept dropping the mortars.
Smith radios Colonel Colin Townsend at 6 RAR Battalion Headquarters.
01, this is 4, sit rep, over. 01, send, over. Call sign 4 to report that the enemy has achieved his own strength. Call sign is being mortared, so there's a large force nearby. Reinforcements, over. 01, I've got no one to send. Call sign 1, just arriving back. Call sign 2 is only at half strength. Call sign 3 is defending ASBL. Over. 4, call sign 2 to my location. Over. 0-1, wait. Out.
So at this moment in the battle, why did Colonel Townsend elect to not send Bravo Company in to help?
Every move and report of that company is entered in a logbook, a battalion logbook as it comes in, and then depending on what the nature of that report is, depends on what response might be given.
5 RAR were miles to the north of Longtan on patrol. D Company were on their own.
As 11 Platoon became embroiled and not able to move, I spoke with Jeff Kendall, who said he wasn't in contact.
About that stage, I moved my 2 forward sections into assault formation, which is just a straight line from Arrowhead, and the reserve section stayed an Arrowhead behind me.
And I said, okay, go around and attack from the north and try and relieve the pressure on 11 Platoon so I can pull them out.
We just walked towards the sound of the firing. That's what you can do. On the lookout for whatever was going to happen.
The battle, for want of a better word, it's been going on for some 15, 20 odd minutes or more, you know. And it was pretty much obvious to most of us in 10 Platoon that 11 Platoon were in deep, big trouble. Otherwise, why would Harry want us to go over there?
Smith radios sharp. With 10 Platoon on the move, 12 Platoon assumed defence of the company HQ, and the enemy began escalating their attack. 11 was almost surrounded.
I had casualties, the complete left-hand section, and a few guys around me were knocked over. Some were killed, some were wounded. There was no way I could pull out.
Sharp radios Smith.
Firing increased. I think Gordon came back to me and said, I think probably more like a company boss, or words to that effect, and that we've been pinned down and was taking casualties.
Sharp estimated the enemy at company size 80 to 100 men.
It is later on, that's probably after half an hour to 3/4 of an hour, when they started to flank us left and right, that I realised that we're up against more. I had at least 100 to 150 guys round to the north, east and south.
That situation didn't get any better.
We were in deep shit, and I'll use that term in every sense.
Deep shit is a good way to put it.
This stage started to rain, and from then on for the next hour it got heavier and heavier and heavier, as it does every day in Vietnam pretty well. I suppose we'd walked for maybe 100, 150 metres, and we saw people going across our front, coming like that, in a straight line, if you imagine. And the straight line is going like that across our front. When I first saw them, I wasn't exactly sure who they were, because it was bucketing down rain. Everybody looks black, no matter, because you're soaked. So, and they were wearing green uniforms anyway. We'd gone another 20 or 30 metres, and you could tell by the rifles, some of them wearing pith helmets sort of things. They're obviously not our guys.
As 10 Platoon moved to within 10 metres of the enemy advancing on 11, 11 Platoon's situation was worsening. Smith needed reinforcements. Smith radios Townsend.
0-1, that's Sunray, over. 0-1, Sunray, over. The main subject call sign 42 is bigger than more call sign. Request urgent trouble reinforcement, over. 0-1, my Sunray has confirmed no choppers available, over.
Nothing.
We asked for reinforcements. Unfortunately, the battalion advised me that they weren't going to send the reinforcements out by helicopters, which is what I'd asked. In hindsight, I don't think we had the helicopters available. In hindsight, I have to say I don't think the task force commander really wanted to get the Americans involved.
So there was an American base close by with helicopters?
Difficult to get orders across. It's better to sort of demonstrate what you want done, you know. And the guys were all waiting for it anyway. And then I just went down on one knee and shouted out fire and started firing. And we opened up across the whole front and pretty well decimated the right-hand element of that little group anyway. I don't know how many people, but quite a few. So I just said to the guys, right, get up again and we'll go again. And we all went forward again, went maybe another 10 or 15 metres, not very far. And all of a sudden we got a hail of fire.
The volume of gunfire in that rubber plantation was just something that I've got to live with for the rest of my life. It was just astronomical. It was just deafening.
The enemy attacked from two sides, wounding 3 and pinning them down. As Kendall called in artillery, radio operator Brian Hornung was hit.
Brian was hit through the shoulder and the round went through the radio set and it was out of commission. As I always said, to his credit, he was more worried about the radio set than he's worried about the wound.
My utmost respect to all those radio operators because they are walking targets. It is said that an average lifespan for a radio man in Vietnam was about 5 or 6 seconds.
So we sort of stopped and the stretcher bearer was treating him and we got the radio off his back and tried to see if it'd go. The other 2 forward sections had just gone to ground. The guys who'd been wounded in that initial burst of fire, when we got them organised, I said we'll go forward by fire and movement, which is a basic tactic where one group fires and the other group moves and vice versa.
You can compare that to when buddy teams are actually advancing on an objective. Essentially, one buddy is on the ground providing cover, and the other buddy is advancing in 3 to 5 second rushes. I'm up, he sees me, I'm down. And then he covers while the other soldier actually then advances.
And the first thing you do is put your head down. And that's exactly what happened because you didn't want your bloody head to be shot off, you know. Wherever possible, you put your head up and you could see people moving in front of you. And there was just hundreds of these people just moving in front of you.
We're just basically firing to the front. And, you know, it's just a waste of time, really. I thought this is just wasting ammunition. And I had a couple more guys wounded and I thought, this is not a good move.
So just over ago, guys were taking holes through their shirts and their trousers and their little bush hat and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, the 7.62 were flying around like bloody bees. And that's when he saw the baddies, or what we thought were baddies, up to our left rear.
We had half a dozen rounds or so fall right on the platoon, which did no damage at all, that's just amazing. For example, my platoon sergeant was actually lifted off the ground by the force of an artillery round and unhurt.
Baddies. What is baddies?
10's communications dead. Smith increased artillery support.
I realised halfway through 11 platoon's engagement, we needed all the artillery we could get out there to try and stop the enemy. And I said to the fire controller, let's have the whole regiment.
Stanley, radio's artillery HQ.
I recall basically the passage of information was that you can't have the whole regiment because 2 of the batteries, there being 3 batteries in a regiment, were laid in support of 5 Battalion back at Nuridat, which was to the north.
Normally, a battery will be allocated in direct support of each battalion. And in this instance, 161 battery, the New Zealand battery, was in support of 6 RAR. One of the Australian batteries was in direct support of 5 RAR, and one of them was in general support.
I recall jumping on the radio and calling up and I said, I want the whole regiment, I want all the guns as quickly as you can get them.
Smith radios Townsend.
The fire controller, Murray Stanley, said to me not long after, we've got the whole regiment.
One battery fired a fire mission battery, then the regiment became involved, and then the mediums fired, and then we fired again, and it just sort of escalated from what had been a fire mission battery that Murray had called.
In addition to that, the American 155 regiment, 6 big 155 guns, they were being fired not in support of us because the artillery claimed they were unsafe to have too close to us.
The 155 for the Australians was a serious bit of artillery.
But the artillery headquarters back at base fired them in depth, shall we say 200 metres out beyond where 11 Platoon was.
If you take the 105mm, these guns were 155mm. The 105 had a 33-pound shell, the 155 about a 90-pound shell. Now, in terms of explosive power and what happens at the other end, it's a bit like the Richter scale, so it's exponentially bigger. It's not just 3 times bigger.
So the Americans, much to their disgust, I might add, weren't allowed to fire in close support, but they certainly caused havoc in the rear areas.
Oh, wow.
The guns themselves are very accurate, much more accurate than a 105, but I think that they were seen as being the counter-mortar and the in-depth firing, when in fact they were quite capable of being brought quite close.
As the death toll continued to rise, the wounded who could began to arrive at company headquarters.
The wounded didn't come in sort of great rushes, say every 10 minutes, and you would maybe get 2, you maybe get 3. But it was consistent like that all the time.
Jack Kirby was looking after the wounded and sort of virtually guiding them to Corporal Phil Dobson, who was our medic, and he had established a small area to look after the wounded.
I can always remember the first wounded. He came in and from his hip down to his ankle, and you would swear that it was a surgeon. It's just sliced the leg open. It's the first time in my life I'd ever actually seen a femur. I've seen the kneecaps, I've seen all the bones down the lower legs. Never forget it. And yet I could not tell you who the guy was. I don't know.
As a medic, I have never seen an injury like that before in the field. However, in the hospital in Iraq, I did see plenty of injuries just like that, including some fasciotomies, which are done by surgeons, in which you do actually see the whole anatomy of the arm or the leg.
Brian Hornung had crawled back from 10 to company HQ.
I knew him as the 10 platoon radio operator, and Brian had sort of said to Jack Kirby that the set was US, indicating that his radio set was no longer serviceable. 10 platoon had no communications back to Harry Smith. They could not call down any artillery. There was no way that they would know any movements between what 11 platoon was doing or what 12 platoon was doing, what indeed company headquarters was doing. So it was vital that we have the radio forward.
Well, you've got to be able to talk to each other, and Jeff would be probably 200 metres away at that stage of the game. He's outside voice communications.
I then said to Jack Kirby that I've got a spare radio set here for 10 platoon, and when I said that, he simply said to me, "Go, go, go."
11 was still out there fighting, and as the wounded continued to come in, Yank, with the only spare radio, ran out in search of 10.
I don't think he exactly knew where 11 platoon were. Well, he knew probably in the general direction, but to find people in that rain and the gunfire. Shit, good on them.
No one knew if 10 was even close to reaching 11. And with 18 artillery guns firing in front of their position, the enemy kept coming.
We've got a raging thunderstorm. It is really bucketing out. We've got a mist just half a metre high. The noise of artillery landing 50 to 100 metres away from you is absolutely deafening. The small arms fire is cracking around your head.
As horrible as the rain was, it did actually produce that mist, as he just said, but that actually was a saving grace, because when I reacted to a 60-minute special on this battle a year ago, Sergeant Buick and Lieutenant Sabin were actually there back at Long Tan talking about the battle and saying how because of the mist, they were actually able to get down prone in the ground and be almost invisible, minus their hats. So that did actually help them a little bit.
And the antenna got shot off our 25 set.
11 platoon had also lost their radio.
I realised at one stage, particularly when their radio stopped operating, that in fact they may have been completely overrun.
And then Platoon Commander Gordon Sharp was killed because he was on his hands and knees to find out where the artillery was.
11 lost platoon commander, National Service Officer Gordon Sharp, 21, shot through the neck in the layer of gunfire just above their heads.
It came as a shock, not only from the point of view of our own mortality, but platoon commanders were not the first to be killed in a Vietnam environment, or shouldn't have been. So coming to grips with your own mortality was somewhat hard-hitting.
Bob Buick took command of 11, as Bill Urkel made his way to 10.
It wasn't until I took off that I realised that a 10 platoon was out there somewhere. But as I got probably about 100 metres, there was crack there, and there was 2 VC that was coming towards me. And I just opened up with the own machine carbine that I had and set off a couple of bursts. Fortunately for me, it worked, and it killed them. And I was able to then move forward, trying to locate exactly where 10 platoon was.
They were there, somewhere. The only problem, in a rubber plantation, everywhere you look is exactly the same.
All the reports that came through from D Company and from the artillery, because they have their own radio nets too, indicated that D Company were up against something big, and I was becoming concerned that D Company was going to become involved in an action in which it was going to find itself very difficult to extricate itself.
Townsend was pressing hard to send reinforcements by armoured personnel carrier.
I didn't push the APCs to go out, I pushed the task force commander to do something about getting us out there, because he controlled the APCs, I didn't.
But Brigadier Jackson knew that if he released A Company, the newly established task force base itself could be exposed.
I think he was engrossed with this idea of a Vietnamese attack on the task force base that night.
There wasn't enough information coming in. He had to wait. And with each new situation, Jackson's decision got tougher. Task force had lost communication with 10 and 11 platoons. If that meant D Company was going to be overrun, there was enough reason to hold back A Company for the defence of Nui Dat.
I think the task force commander took a bit of time making up his mind about sending us out.
Even if Jackson said go, right now, it would still take 90 minutes to get there. As it was, Jackson wasn't prepared to issue the order.
This is an example of lacking operational flexibility.
The need was there to get the communications to 10 platoon. I can recall yelling out, "Mr. Kendall, Mr. Kendall," just trying to pinpoint where Lieutenant Kendall was.
Heard Bill O'Kell singing out, "Mr. Kendall, where are you?" And he arrived with the radio, which was very, very pleasing.
There was no...
I just want to say that what this radio operator did is incredibly brave. He had to run with almost no visibility in the rain, trying to find this platoon by himself, and he actually made it to his objective. I think this is one of the most amazing stories that I've heard about the battle. My utmost respect to him for his courage.
So thanks to the checks in the mail sort of thing at that particular stage, it was all business.
I got on the radio and Harry said, "Come withdraw to my position now."
Jeff Kendall advised me that he had been pinned down and taking casualties, having killed a fair number of VC in doing so.
When D Company was beginning to suffer quite serious casualties, I wouldn't call them heavy casualties at this stage. And no, I don't want to sound callous here, but no, it didn't affect me personally because I was concerned with the company as a whole, and that the company as a whole had to be assisted as quickly and as effectively as possible.
So just like a medic doing battlefield triage, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Once the next part is up, I'll put it right here. Thanks for watching.